Members, we'll make a start. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to this extraordinary meeting of South Cambridgeshire District Council. I'm Councillor Peter Fane, I'm Chair of the Council, and my Vice Chair is Councillor Peter Sanford on my left. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and we also allow recording, filming and photography, so long as the meeting is not disrupted. Please ensure that your phone is on silent. Please keep your microphone switched off until you're invited to speak. If participating remotely, yes, we have a couple of maybe, then when you're invited to address the meeting, please make sure your microphone and camera are switched on. And when you finish addressing the meeting, turn them both off. Members attending remotely should indicate their wish to speak through a chat message, but otherwise, please don't use that for any other purposes. I will ask the Vice Chair on my left to note the order of speakers, so draw his eye if you want to speak or to ask a question. Do not today expect to be offered too many separate opportunities, and we will be very tight on timekeeping today. If there are any simple amendments, then they should have been shared with Democratic Services in advance of the meeting. I don't anticipate any votes today. There may be one of affirmation. If there is not clear affirmation, I will state that a recorded vote will be taken and members in the chamber will then vote electronically in the usual way, and the result will be displayed. The meeting is quorate, so we will proceed. Item 1, apologies. Are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Bhattacharya, Jackson Wood, who is online, Redrup, Van der Ven, Hoffman. I understand Councillor Mark Howell is running a little bit late, and I also can see that Councillor Michael Atkins is online as well.
Thank you. Any other apologies members are aware of? Have we lost the sound? Are we audible okay? Chief Executive.
I think the Democratic Service Manager said that Councillor Van der Ven wasn't in. Van der Ven, my apologies.
Right, yes. Do we have Councillor Van der Ven's apologies? I think we do, yes. Good. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are required to declare the existence and nature of any interest which affects or relates to any item of business. And of course, if that interest becomes apparent during the meeting, then you should bring it to the attention of officers at that time. Let me make it clear that the fact that you may or may not be a member of another council involved in the same process does not require to be declared as an interest separate at this stage. Do any members have any interests to declare which are relevant to the item of business? Thank you. As I say, if an interest subsequently becomes apparent, please raise it at that point. So, item 3, local government reorganisation. This is the only substantive item on today's agenda, and you have before you a report updating the Council on local government reorganisation and the Council's submission to the Government. I'm sure members are aware that the decision to respond to the letter from Minister McMahon is a Cabinet decision, so there will not be a vote in this meeting other than to note the contents of that letter. As you know, a Cabinet meeting will follow immediately after this extraordinary meeting. The Cabinet have been very clear that they're keen to hear and understand the views of the whole Council at this early stage of local government reorganisation, which is why we called this meeting. Now, before I call the leader, let me just remind you of the procedure. I will ask the leader to introduce this. You will have 5 minutes to do so. My Vice Chair will then tell me the order in which members wish to speak. So you will have perhaps put up your hands before then. And we will keep you strictly to 3 minutes. I will group any questions. So we may take up to 3 speakers asking questions, if that's what members wish to do, before I invite the leader to respond or to invite another member of her Cabinet to do so. Members, last year we celebrated the 50th anniversary of this council. We're here to talk about the next 50 years, a period where others will take the decisions. And this is not a decision solely for this council. So please bear in mind, when you ask questions, that it may not necessarily be possible to give you answers, because it is not a matter for us. The decision will be taken at the end of the day by the Minister or the Secretary of State. I call on the Leader of Council to introduce the report, and I would just stress to members that the key document is the draft letter, which is on page 21, Appendix 2, the draft letter to the Minister. Leader.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, members and colleagues supporting us today. So across the chamber, I suspect that we all abhor the enforcement of devolution and local government reorganisation on those of us in local government, and the imposition that it presents on our sovereignty and our autonomy. And I welcome this opportunity for us all, across parties, to have a free and frank debate about it today, because this is actually the biggest issue of my whole political career, and I would suspect of yours, of all of yours as well. It's the biggest, this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to South Cambridgeshire, and it's rather sad. It's very sad that actually it means the demise of South Cambridgeshire. However, we must live in the real world and accept that under the current government, this is the future, and fighting this is pointless, because if we don't run with this, then it will be enforced on us, and the outcomes will undoubtedly be much worse. I think it's imperative that we remain in control of our destiny as much as we possibly can, and we focus entirely on what is in the best interest of our residents and our businesses and the place that we all are serving and care about. Key to success is the footprint of the new unitary authority, and that is as yet, to be determined for the whole of Cambridge and Peterborough. Getting it right will allow us to achieve on the government's priority, which are, there's three main things: increasing the pace of growth, dealing with the current and future challenges to create a council that is resilient and shock-proof, and creating an organisation that is trusted. Now, regrettably, trust in central government has never been lower, and actually it's not as strong in local government as it used to be, and it's absolutely imperative that all of our residents and our businesses trust us to work in their best interest. So there is an opportunity here to rebuild on that. Mentioned that the geography is important, but that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. But there are opportunities for the place to fly here. We are in an extremely fortunate position that we have the highest growth in the UK. We are an area of international significance, thanks to the university and our knowledge-intensive industries in particular. And we are currently, as you know, the focus for government now, and meeting with Lord Patrick Vallance tomorrow, who's just been put in charge of the Oxford-Cambridge growth corridor, so hopefully it'll be good to know what that actually means. But there are now civil servants whose job is to deal with Greater Cambridge, and that's new. So there seems to be a move now for cross-departmental focus from government on our area. But it's vital that we don't just focus on what government wants. What do our residents want? And residents generally don't care about the complexities of local government. What they care about is the services that they're in receipt of. So we've got to ensure that this new entity, this new unitary council, provides services that meets the needs of the people close to those who need it. Not some organisations sitting a long way away from them. The more local the delivery of these needs can be, the more people like it. There undoubtedly needs to be a focus on prevention in order to, which ideally is delivered at a sort of neighbourhood level. And there's some really nice examples out there of neighbourhood health provision, which is very, very successful. And only by really upping our efforts on all the prevention agenda do we start reducing the demand on health and social care, keeping people happy and healthy in their own homes for longer, living independent lives. And local residents, they want really good councillors, and they've got, you know, they're very lucky. They have in South Cambridgeshire really good councillors at the moment who are, you know, and we are all accessible, and we're all well informed, and we're well supported by all our staff here at South Cambridgeshire. And we are the go-to people for our residents. And what we can't let happen is for the elected members to be remote from the people who they are there to serve. So it's really important that, you know, whatever plans we end up with actually preserves what is best that we currently have. So this is going to be a massive challenge to all of us, members and colleagues, partners and people. But, you know, unionisation is something that we may well have done here at some point in the future anyway. It's kind of, you know, all the time I've been a councillor, it pops up every few years and there's a discussion. And, you know, there's one or two people in my group who are great proponents of unionisation. And I've pushed back on it in recent years because I've said it's not our priority. You know, there are other things that are our priority. But it is, I'm just winding up, yeah. But you know, it now is our priority, thanks to the government. But it's imperative that we work together. All of us work together across all parties and across all partners in the best interest of South Cambridgeshire, so that we leave a really strong legacy whilst creating what I hope will be an exemplary unitary council, which we can all be proud of, whether we choose to remain in it as elected members or whether we choose to become a resident viewing it from outside. Thank you.
Members, you'll recall it's recommended that Council provides Cabinet with their views on the future of local government reorganisation in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and on the letter at page 21. Who would like to kick off the debate on that? I have Councillor Stephen Drew, I think, first. Any others who want? Well, we'll take further names in a minute.
First and
Councillor
only
Drew.
at this point, goodness me. I'd just like to ask the leader something in relation to perhaps the practicalities of this. South Cambridgeshire District Council is currently engaged in a 4-day week trial, and obviously we currently have the public consultation going on in relation to that, and the outcome of that may well be to continue it, it may well be to stop it. We will see where we go with that. But assuming that the decision was made for the 4-day week to become a permanent fixture of South Cambridgeshire District Council, how does the leader see that impacting upon any discussions and plans that exist for the setting up of a unitary authority involving South Cambs?
I did say that we'd take more than one question at a time. Councillor Cohn.
Thank you. My question was to the leader around how we'll preserve as much as possible access from, you know, from working people, essentially. You know, will they be able to do this as a commitment outside of their full-time job amongst the new boundaries of a unitary authority? So essentially I'm asking the Cabinet to really consider the workload and what that means in terms of people accessing that role to be a councillor.
Thank you. And next I have Councillor Bradnam.
I note, Chair, that the nature of these questions is quite weighty, so the leader may wish to divide them up, but I would like to ask, is the leader as concerned as I am, and I'm a county councillor and informed about the budget there, that the well-run finances of South Cambridgeshire District Council could be overwhelmed by the growing cost of adult social care and the bill for home-to-school transport for children with special educational needs and disabilities. Thank you.
Leader, would you like to comment on those questions?
Thank you. To spread the load, I'm going to ask my deputy to take the second question, but I'll deal with the first and the last one, if I may, first. There's obviously a 2P process, which I'm sure I'm going to be learning an awful lot more about, which will deal with how our staff, irrespective of what their terms of employment are, will deal with how our staff transfer into the new entity. So I think these are processes we've used before. I think we used it with the waste service, with the shared planning service. So I think we have considerable expertise within the council for managing these situations. And, you know, when we've amalgamated services from other councils, people have had different terms of employment. So I don't think it's any different to that. So there'll be a process there that will deal with that yeah, when the time comes. But we're probably talking some years down the line. On the issue of finances, yep, I absolutely share your concerns, Councillor Bradnam. What I'm told from Somerset Council, where I think it was 5 different councils were amalgamated into a unitary, you know, with reserves, that actually within 12 months, all those reserves disappeared with the social care, dealing with social care. So, you know, it is a massive issue, and it is a big worry. But, you know, we all have a responsibility. Just because, you know, we have reserves and the county doesn't, actually, it's not our money, it's the public's money, and it's right that the public's money gets spent on public services. And obviously, you know, currently we are in control of how that money is spent here. A new unitary council will be in control of how it is spent in the future. I think it's important that we ensure that the new entity is on the best financial footing possible from the outset. And then, you know, we need to see what the government is going to do. They've talked about the money following the deprivation. So we're obviously, you know, we're not all going to be receiving the same amount. It is going to be different. We do very well out of business rates in this area. And again, it will depend on what the need is for those demand-led services in our area, and what our income is. So there are as much unknowns, but I know it's been very tough on some of these other unitaries, some of which are, you know, still teetering on Section 114 notices and continue to be bailed out by government. And I think there's quite a list of them that have been bailed out just this year. So, yeah, it's a big concern. If I may ask Brian,
could I ask our broadcasting officers to display the screen such that the people watching online can see the speaker more easily? In other words, that the speaker be on the main screen.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. So, Councillor Cohen asked about professionalisation of members of the new institutions, however they look. And clearly, almost everything at this point is speculation about what might end up. But those of us that are double hatters or triple hatters in some cases here will know the amount of work that we have to get through, the constant interruptions to our working lives, for example, which is an indication of what it will be like, I think, under unitary councils. And I think there is a possibility and probably an imperative that we move to something more close to professional councillors doing a full-time job. Now, whether that will come about or not, as I said, is speculative, but I think there is some good sense in certainly considering that. So the government's stated objectives with this is to be more efficient, to have cost savings, but the impacts of that are not just members of the unitary councils, but our parishes are currently asking us what it will mean for them. Because if we've got more work to do with a smaller number of members, who will pick up the excess, as it were? So they that still holds true. And the other thing that I would just point out as being a county councillor as well was the estimate that came out of our chief executive at county of 18.6 million cost to do the work for this reorganisation, to gather the data. So that puts the whole thing into context, I think, and certainly in terms of the efficiencies and cost savings that are purported from the government. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call the next speaker, let me remind you that we're invited to provide Cabinet with our views on the future of local government. It's not compulsory to ask a question. If you do choose to ask a question, I shall ask the leader or a deputy to answer it as briefly as possible. I want to get as many views as possible. Now, the next speaker I have is Councillor Bayward.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a question. Is there scope within the current discussions, both with other councils and with government, to consider the issue of devolving some powers to our parishes? Now, South Cambridgeshire is 100% parished, but there are many areas across England. I think by geography, it's about 20% of the area of England is not parished. And is there scope for areas, for example, Cambridge City, to have parish-level governments, either village, town, or city-wide parish-tier governments?
Again, we'll group questions. So next I have Councillor Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry for my late arrival. Just really to ask the leader if we could, when they're in discussion, the leaders are in discussion, with regards to the HRA accounts and with regards to us and the city, which I think are the only districts which still have maintained their housing, and how that will work in the future. Will we be having, which the only way I can describe it is the West Lothian question, where only people from the city and South Cambs will have any dealings, or what was the city and South Cambs Council in the dealings, or will the whole of the new unitary authority be doing so? It's just something to be posed for the leaders for a discussion so that we can have some sort of feedback for the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Before I invite the next speaker, can I just take an indication of others who may want to speak or to ask questions? I think I just have then Councillor Howell next, and then I think Councillor Martin Khan was next, and my Vice Chair has noted some others as well. So, Councillor Martin Khan.
I generally am in favour of the new authorities not being too large. I generally feel that we already have the largest local authorities in Europe, and I would prefer that we kept as much as possible near to the people that we're representing. I just wondered whether the leader would also use that as one of the guiding lights in her determination, without saying exactly what the area should be. And secondly, I'm wondering what role the historic counties of this area might play in the consideration. Will we be looking at historic units as a potential basis, or are we looking completely afresh?
Leader.
Thank you. Okay, so the first question about parishing everywhere is a really interesting question. So having spoken to a number of unitaries that have been formed in recent years, the advice from all of them is to parish everywhere, because, you know, with a higher level, kind of much more strategic organisation, you know, devolving powers and responsibility and probably money down to parish level actually gets stuff done on a local level. So Durham, which I know very well, regrets not parishing the whole of the county when it became a unitary about 14, 15 years ago. And they now, you know, they now see that actually that would have been highly advantageous. So again, it's going to be a decision for the new entity. But when I've heard Jim McMahon speak, which I have done twice in the last week and a half, he is very, very keen on devolving responsibilities down to town and parish levels, and the empowerment of local government at the lowest level. So I'm pretty sure that is an expectation of government. And I think for those of us, you know, for us in South Cambridgeshire, where, you know, we really value our parish councils, is that for the end of the meeting? Can we stop? You know, where we really value our parish councils, and we see, you know, the added value we get from them, that actually that would be something that we would be hoping that the new entity would be taking forward. So I hope that's a satisfactory response there. Councillor Howell, so this is the first time that I've been asked this, and I've been on the HRA accounts. Again, I think, well, obviously a lot depends on, you know, the final footprint, of course. And again, I think it is a decision that lies within the hands of the new entity. But I think it's certainly, it's certainly something that we would want to have been considering in advance. But I think the thing is, it's about moving us on from thinking that stuff, it's a bit like, our reserves are ours and our housing is ours. It won't be ours anymore. It'll be the new unitaries, whatever it's called. It will belong to it. And so, when I've done some work with a pretty new unitary, I'm not going to name it, but they've really struggled to create one culture, because everybody's felt very, committed to their own original space, and they can't quite move on to realise they're part of something bigger, because they keep harping on about their bit and what's in the best interest of their bit. And so I think that's probably going to be the biggest challenge for us moving forward. Us kind of going, well, we love South Cambridgeshire. It's been great, but
you've taken 3 minutes to answer those two questions.
I
wonder whether you could just quickly answer Councillor Martin Kahn's question.
Okay, thank you. It was an interesting question. I think it deserved an answer. So on the size, if you could bear with me, and I just talk about size a little bit. You might be. So I do believe that smaller footprints are better, and certainly the DCN, which has done a lot of work on this, absolutely believes the smaller footprints are better. There's a very interesting report was produced last week, I think a couple of weeks ago, I think now, by the Chief Exec of Uttlesford Council, which I'm very happy to share with everything, which actually demonstrates that there is no correlation between the size of a council and its performance. There are high-performing big councils, there are high-performing little councils, there are poor-performing big councils, there are poor-performing little councils. And there's a very, very nice little diagram here showing how they're performing on things like Ofsted rating of children's services. So the smallest councils, which are between, the smallest one is the Isle of Scilly at just over 2,000. So the smallest quartile is between that size and just under 200,000, nearly double the number of those as compared to the biggest ones, which are just over 300,000 and 1.1 million. Double the number of the smaller ones are rated outstanding for children's services than the big ones. And so, big is not, the DCN will quite categorically tell you, big is not beautiful. So it's about having the right footprint and not just saying it has to be this size, because there is no evidence base at all to support 500,000 being an optimal number for performance and delivering services.
Thank you, Leader. Understandably, it's proving difficult to answer 3 questions in 3 minutes with the necessary degree of detail, and therefore I'm proposing to take rather smaller groups, i.e. 2 questions. And Councillor Heather Williams, and I remind you, you don't need to put your contribution in the terms of the question. We would be interested to hear your views. Councillor Heather Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I think there'll be a bit of both, probably, from myself. First of all, I agree that it should be something like, that should come from us. And it does feel very unnatural that it feels it's been done to us. And I don't believe that there was a mandate for this when they were elected, the new government. And I'm very disappointed that we're in the situation. But I do agree that I think they've made it very clear that this is what, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just always better if those locally get to have the say as to why. So a bit of a plea really to ensure that as it goes forward, I know there'll be lots of modelling and things, that all configurations, when we sit down to look at the boundaries, which I know we're nowhere near doing yet, all configurations have been considered to make sure that not just ourselves but residents get a clear choice. If we start cherry picking at the start, then we won't actually get those comparators that means we know we're getting the best result we can for our residents. So that's probably my first ask. And I think it's interesting around the parishes. I think one of the real risks when I've spoken with other unitary leaders is those discretionary services as the money runs dry, community chest grants and things like we do here. that falls more and more onto the parishes. So some analysis as to how that will affect our parishes. Electors per head has been covered. It's Councillor Cohn says, for people that are working, to make sure we don't lose that skills and expertise, which I think professionalising councillors would lose potentially. But also, I remember when I was first elected, my daughter was a few months old, and you can absolutely do both. It's completely possible, but I think it is harder, particularly in the rural areas for the sheer geography. If you go to some of the county divisions, there are 20 odd villages. So what works, I feel we're being very modelled as a London model being applied to a rural county, and I would welcome some pushback about that. The leader is right, we need to make sure this works for residents, and that's what I'm saying about having those multiple options on the table. But also it'd be good to hear, not necessarily tonight, but coming forward, how we propose as a council to engage with our residents. Other councils are doing consultations and the like, and I think that'd be a really welcome thing. It might be that we want a bit more information, but that we ought to have a plan of engagement, because it's not just the councillors that need to get on board with them being in a new place. It is everybody, otherwise it will not have that sense of place. I welcome the views about working together. I think that's incredibly important, and we have to recognise this is not something that comes on party boundaries, on geographical boundaries, urban versus rural, or any of those things. All of us are going to have our own views, and I think you've heard that around the chamber. For those that have expressed opinions, it's going to be a varied view. But we just need to make sure that we are all as well informed as we can be across the whole chamber, and that we will do collectively what we deem is right by residents. But if I could have some reassurances on there, and particularly around the electors per head, because I think that if we want diversity in our councils, and many of us have stood on platforms trying to achieve that, this does feel like pretty much a risk, and that is, we do not get the best results for our residents if we are not reflective and representative of the residents that we serve.
Thank you. Let me just say that because I gave the leader a little more time, it seemed fair to give the leader of the opposition a little more time. Please do not, other members, expect me to do the same in your case. So we then move on to our next contribution is Councillor Dr. Timmy Hawkins.
There was quite a few questions there. May I please deal
yes,
with those?
We'll dispense with the grouping of questions.
If you don't mind, I think there was 3 questions there.
Fair enough. Leader.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Councillor Williams. I agree with very much of what you say. This is undoubtedly built on a London Borough metropolitan model, and within MHCLG, all those politicians, bar Sharon Taylor, who was the leader of Stevenage, all have their feet in London boroughs or metropolitan. So that is their experience. So they really don't understand things from a district view, and particularly from a rural district view. So yeah, completely agree with you there. On how many people we're all going to be representing, Jim McMahon has made it very clear that there will be fewer councillors, probably 50% fewer, and that is an expectation. He's made some interesting comments about how he wants elected members, all elected members, to be empowered, to be able to make a difference in their own wards, their own areas. So he seems to be envisaging a sort of enhanced role for backbench councillors and for opposition councillors and so on. So again, that's something we need to take on board and see how we can make that work. Again, in Durham, all members get a ward allowance of some £1,000 a year. There's obviously proper processes for it to go through, but that's for them to agree with their residents how it's spent in their ward. So there are some interesting opportunities here, but there will be fewer councillors. That's the bottom line. That's what government wants. They think there are too many elected members around. Whether they think that when they're delivering leaflets or not, I don't know, but that's another matter. So the work that all the chief executives are doing is, very, very sophisticated, detailed bit of work, essentially disaggregating all the services and aggregating them back together into, different combinations to see what works. There are not going to be any referendum on this. Government have said there will be no referendum. It actually, we want to take our residents with us. But they won't get a choice. Government make the final decision. So, we will make our submissions along with our, the other councils in Cambridge and Peterborough. We will make our submissions. We might all be in agreement. We might not be in agreement. There may be conflicting submissions made. But at the end of the day, the Secretary of State will make the decisions about those, and it won't be our residents. And, we will do our very best to make sure that what we submit is acceptable to our residents, acceptable to our members here, and acceptable to government. But the reality is we might get it wrong. So, they will obviously be, we will have to be working on a communication strategy here, and that's, we've already talked about that a number of times in the last week or so. So, we need to start thinking as a body, not just this council, us and all our partners, about what our communication strategy is for our residents in order to keep people informed. How interested people are, I don't know. We find this stuff fascinating. I think most people aren't that enamoured of it, but it doesn't mean they don't deserve to be told about it and have all the information available to them. So again, I hope that between all of us, we can agree what is right for the audience.
Thank you, Leader. My thanks to Councillor Dr. Timmy Hawkins for holding fire. Your turn now.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I'll try and keep mine as brief as I can. I think I said before that this government is in a bit of a hurry. There's a lot of changes being done, and as we already are aware, there's plenty of NPPF planning changes that we're having to deal with. And I think it's interesting in his letter that the Minister said it's essential that councils continue to deliver their business as usual services and duties, and includes progress towards local plans, etc., etc. And yet we know that even to this point, the letter in our appendix here that's we're proposing to send to the Minister has taken a lot of time and effort. I'm not sure they actually realize just how much resource is going into this transformation that they're expecting us to do. And also, they expect that we will meet the costs from existing budgets. What planet are they on? Where is the money going to come from? Please, Leader, can you tell them just what we think of all these extra work that they're adding on to the business as usual work that we already have to do? I would like to see what it is that they're going to give us in terms of money. Please ask them for as much as we can get. It's not just the money, it's the people who will have to do the work. But I think I will leave it at that. There's a lot that's going to have to happen. Whilst I understand that our residents don't care how many levels they are, they just want services delivered, there will be advantages because, again, putting my planning hat on, highways is in one level, DM is in another level. Perhaps, all of it coming together might make planning easier. But at this point in time, there's a lot they're asking us to do for the amount of savings they think we will have. I think we're not on this planet. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't hear a question mark there, not compulsory. Councillor Helen Leaming.
No, just that the Leader should tell them exactly what we think and to get as much money out of them as we can.
I think the Leader has got the gist of that invitation. Councillor Helen Leaming.
Thank you, Chair. I have two related practical questions, please. Through you, Chair, I'd like to ask the Leader, what is the timetable for this process beyond the submission of this letter, as far as we know? And what work is being done to map out our assets, our duties, our contracts, and how will this advance, this work, how will this progress as the picture becomes clearer? Thank you.
Leader.
Thank you very much. If I may just respond to Councillor Hawkins initially. Both myself and Councillor Heather Williams and Councillor John Williams were at the DCN conference last week, where I think Jim McMahon and Dame Sharon Taylor were left in no doubt by anybody about, what a massive burden this is to us. I mean, I was on the stage with Sharon Taylor introducing her, and I did ask her to just go and tell government that actually we're all exhausted. And there was 350 people at that conference, and I know a lot of them. And when you say to people, "How are you?" they go, "Exhausted." We're exhausted already, and we've only just begun on the process. So that there was a lot of pretty knackered-looking people there, quite honestly. And I don't think there was much late night, cavorting, because everybody was really glad to get to bed. I think we are telling government, that this is a great big burden. We are absolutely saying to them, where's the money coming from? And they're saying you're paying for it yourself, and you'll recoup that from the money that you are going to save. And yes, it is going to be a real challenge managing business as usual. And particularly in areas like this, where there's huge demands on us to deliver growth over and above any other part of the country. But that's the reality of it. And we will have to do our best without killing everybody, quite honestly, in the process. So going on to Councillor Leeming. I'm going to ask Liz Watts to talk about what's being done. But the timetable is hopefully this letter will go in by the deadline of the 21st, and then there will be a submission sometime between September and November of this year with the details of what the proposals are going to be from our region. But if I may ask Liz Watts to talk about the detail of the work that she's doing.
Yes, please, Chief Executive, if you would let us know a little bit about that work. That would be very helpful.
Chair. Having done this work 10 years ago in Suffolk, I had quite a lot of experience with the financial modelling, so I volunteered to lead the financial and data modelling group across the county. So that's all 5 districts, the county and Peterborough, who have a financial and a data person on the group. And we're building first of all, a financial model that enables us to both aggregate at district level and disaggregate at a county level financial aspects of what new unitaries would look like. But we're also, in terms of the data, collecting data on workforce, on IT, on assets like offices and other council assets, so that we can kind of have a fairly relatively high-level picture of if you were to combine these districts in this part of county, or the whole of county in these districts, or Peterborough in some districts, you would then be able to say, and in that arrangement, that the new unitary would have currently these assets, this workforce, this IT. We're doing an analysis of all of the procurement contracts. So it is quite high level at the moment, because obviously, it's a complicated piece of work, and we don't want to go too far without being able to present back to leaders and getting another steer from leaders. But that's what we're doing at the moment.
Thank you, that's very helpful. I think next I have Vice Chair, Councillor Peter Sanford.
Thank you, Chair. The letter in Appendix 2, which we've been invited to consider this evening, essentially says that the Cambridgeshire local authority leaders have met and come to no agreement on a way forward. Noting that we're shortly entering the quiet period before the county council elections, could the leader map out the process she thinks needed to follow to reach the detailed proposals by the government's November deadlines, please?
Leader.
Do you want me to take that now?
Please,
yeah, okay,
yes, I think so.
Thank you. So I think, I'm aware that there are other places in the country which are really struggling to even have a civilised conversation about this. That's not the case here. All leaders supported by the chief executives have been, from the very outset, have been having very sensible, mature, professional conversations, very much focusing on what's in the best interest. I've been very impressed by it, actually, and it's been good to be able to pass on the experience we've had here to places that are struggling a bit more. And unlike some, our county council has been, played its full role in the sharing of data and being supportive, which is very, very good. So, the work that Liz has just described will, when it will come back to us all as leaders, there's a key thing, because we're just moving into pre-election period. We never know what's going to happen in elections, do we? And so, it was felt that it would be inappropriate prior to the election for anything definitive to be said, because that would predetermine, a new administration, make life very difficult for everybody. So it was very important that, because elections here were still happening, unlike in 7 other counties where they've been able to be far more definitive about it, that nothing definitive was said at this stage. And then I think things, once the election's held, I think we will be able to move on at pace and begin to start refining, what the options are, and then hopefully populating it with the evidence which Liz and her colleagues will be providing for us.
We will need to get a move on, won't we?
And we will need to get a move on, because the government set a very short timetable, which goes back to the last question about how we keep all the plates spinning.
Did Councillor Milnes want to add anything more to that?
No.
I have, thank you, Councillor Milnes. I have just 2 more speakers currently on my list, Councillor Ariel Khan and Councillor Dr. Richard Williams. I may have missed others desperately waving at us, in which case I apologise, but we can take other speakers. So, Councillor Ariel Khan.
So the leader has actually already answered most of my question, responding to Councillors Williams and Leeming. But I did want to ask her for a clarification. The leader mentioned that they're not seeking any consultations from residents because this is ultimately a decision that the national government will make. I just wanted to confirm that whether there were plans to invite the public to give their view at all at any stage of the process, or are we just not involving the public in this decision at all, and at any stage?
I think that's one we could group with the next question. Can I just invite you, when you address that, just consider, or perhaps help us to understand what paragraph 4C of the schedule, talking about proposals should include evidence of local engagement, what that might mean in practice. That would be helpful as part of that answer, I think. But let us invite Councillor Dr. Richard Williams to make a contribution, possibly a question if he wishes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a few points. Just on the general question, I think there certainly are potential advantages to unitarisation. There are risks as well. One thing I've learnt in my time as a district councillor is that the issues faced in a rural district like South Cambridgeshire are rather different to the issues that are faced even in the city. And sitting on JDCC, you can see that writ large. And for those of us who were in JDCC, it was writ large at the end of the meeting today, where some quite stark differences emerged, but thankfully they're not normal. Just in terms of the specific proposal, the leader made some comments earlier about seeking comments from all members of all political parties and potentially working together on this. Could the leader commit to briefings as we go forward? The paper we've got before us is fairly bland. I understand why that is the case, but could we commit to detailed briefings, preferably I think on a group basis, because sometimes you get more frank discussions as we go forward and more details emerge, and briefings which give us options rather than just brief us on an outcome. That will be helpful. A few other points. In terms of going forward and coming up with a new proposal, I think it would be useful in thinking about a new structure for Cambridgeshire to have an eye on the scrutiny of the mayoralty, because obviously there will need to be entirely new arrangements for the scrutiny of the mayoralty. One thing I've found as a district councillor is that the mayoralty can be quite remote. So I think we probably could rethink the way in which we scrutinise the mayoralty and you allow ward councillors to actually engage with the mayoralty in a new system. There could be an opportunity there. I would say as well, I think it provides an opportunity for maybe folding the GCP into a more democratic structure as well. And then just finally, picking up Councillor Ariel Khan's point, there's been a lot of interest in this from my parish councils. So I think consultation and engagement with parish councils would be very important. Thank you.
Leader, can I ask you to respond to those questions? And then if there are no more contributions to this debate, I'll ask you to take up to 3 minutes to summarise where we are so that we can wind this up.
Thank you. I'm going to, I'll answer this the second question there, but I'm going to ask Liz Watts, I'll come to her afterwards, to talk about what our statutory obligation is on consulting, because I know we do have one, but I don't know the detail of that. So, but what there won't be is referendums on this, because government won't let you do that, and at the end of the day, it's their decision. Councillor Williams, so yes, there are undoubtedly advantages, there are undoubtedly risks. I appreciate what you say about the challenges of creating, of taking urban and rural and getting them to work together as one place, identify as one place. Absolutely, that's going to be a huge challenge, and that certainly is played out elsewhere in the country. That's part of the challenge of this. I think it's. I think absolutely we can have. Well, I think we should have briefings on it. I think apart from anything, my group want briefings on this, and I've done my utmost to brief them as much as I can on a situation that has been fast moving, but starting from a point of very little information at all. It's been really difficult to work out what it is we know, what we think we know, and what we don't know but need to know. And the LGA has been doing a lot of work on this, and there's a very useful kind of resource bank, I think, on the front page of their website, which deals with all the sort of general stuff, not the stuff that's specific to us. So yes, we will arrange briefings. It's interesting you pick up about scrutiny of mayoralty. So we've been discussing this today. We've had a board meeting, and one of the things I brought up was that the government has obviously cited on the inadequacy of scrutiny of mayoral-led combined authorities and of strategic authorities. And even though it is much improved here over what it has been in the past, it doesn't really have any backbone to it. So I know government are currently looking at this, and I brought it up today in the meeting, particularly as new Devo deals are going to very much change combined authorities. Mayoral powers are going to become, I think, pretty unrecognisable over what they are now, and they're going to start having significant impact on local government as well, particularly with strategic planning powers. I mean, quite what that means as yet, we don't know the detail of it, and there'll be large sums of money, even larger sums of money. So I think it's vital that there is robust scrutiny of mayoral combined authority. So completely agree. And in parish councils, well, I know Liz is well, I think the council is fastidious in sending briefings out regularly to all our parish councils. Let me just take away and see if I can I'll have a chat to Liz and other colleagues about whether we can do something specifically for parish councils on where we are at the moment. So myself and Councillor Heather Williams, we've been hearing all the stuff from kind of the horse's mouth, haven't we? So we're pretty well informed, but actually sometimes we forget that to trickle this down to the parish councils. This really matters to them. So let's take that away and give some thought to how we can do it. We can certainly make it an item on the next liaison forum. It'd be a pleasure to do that, but of course not everybody comes. So we'll have a think about how we can how we can set up some sort of FAQ or something like that.
Before you do wrapping up, can I?
Yes, yes. Do you want to follow up, and then I'll ask Liz to talk about consultation, because I don't know the answer to that.
One question that you prompted and hinted at. We've got a very odd situation in that across the county and districts, we're determining our own dissolution and then reforming. And that's an odd situation for us to be in. Some of us will choose to stand down before that happens, and then others will stand for election to a shadow authority for an interim period before it gets transformed. And during that period, there will be a limit to what the existing authorities are able to commit to. So it will be largely during that period an interregnum and very distinct limitations on what current authorities can do. They won't be able to make commitments for the new authority which will then take over. So this is a very peculiar circumstance that we're having to try and map out and do it in a most efficient and reasonable way. And for somebody that's been involved in some of the discussions so far, I must agree with the leader's comment about the sense and adult consideration from everybody involved at the chief executives and leadership level. We haven't seen party political influences to the fore. Everybody's been very good so far, so I hope that will continue in that vein because we need it to. Thank you.
Chief Executive, do you want to comment on the consultations?
Yes, and if I may just add a couple of other things through you, Chair. So I'm more than happy to offer briefings to groups. I'm already meeting the Leader of the Opposition every fortnight about LGR, and I'd be delighted to offer briefings. There hasn't been a lot to say at the moment, but when, as and when there is information, very happy to do that. We did send out an information note to parishes very early on, and we actually have a parish conference for clerks in May, and local government organisation will be one of the things that we'll be talking about there, but it's really important that we continue to engage with parishes. In terms of consultation more broadly, there are two bits to this. I think there's certainly, if I go from the back forwards, when the government chooses a final option, my understanding is that they're required to consult on it. And so that will be a kind of formal consultation. Obviously, for us, it's much more important that we engage with local residents and businesses and parishes as the options develop. And I think not knowing exactly what we've got to engage on, it's hard to know what form of engagement that would take. But I'd certainly be encouraging the council to really extensively engage so that we understand the views of our residents, businesses and parishes, because it's their council, not ours.
Thank you for that. Now, before I invite the leader to sum up, let me just remind members that you are invited to provide Cabinet with your views on the future of local government reorganisation in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Do any other members of this council wish to take up that invitation? Councillor Drew, you have had a chance before. Did you want to make a new point? I think we could accommodate that.
Thank you. I thought I was going to be told I'd had my go. Thank you very much. Just a first thing to say that obviously the matter cannot be political, as all three of the leading political parties in England have at some point in the last number of years supported local government reorganisation and the creation of unitaries, whether it be the Conservatives in power by themselves, whether it be the Conservative and Liberal Democrats in coalition, or whether it now be the Labour Party. So therefore the concept of unitaries I do not see as a political matter. I just want to make a point in relation to some things we said earlier about sort of debts and such like. One of the things that always strikes me about where we live in South Cambridgeshire is that we are able to have the opportunities that we have in South Cambridgeshire because we sit around Cambridge City. And therefore we are absolutely joined to our residents, colleagues, whatever you want to refer to them, in Cambridge City. For those of us who grew up in the area, we will no doubt remember that we would visit Cambridge to use the swimming pools within Cambridge, to use the library within Cambridge, to use the facilities. Those are obviously things that have been provided by council taxpayers within Cambridge City. There are then things within South Cambridgeshire which are provided as a result of council tax paid by residents in South Cambridgeshire. There is therefore an absolute symbiosis between South Cambridgeshire, East Cambridgeshire, Cambridge City, We are inherently linked together. So therefore, I hope that when we are having discussions and debates about what the right thing is to do, that we are not in some way drawn into an attempt to what we see as protect our peace, somehow suggesting that we are not already benefiting from things that Cambridge City Council does, or East Cambridgeshire does, or Huntingdonshire does. We already cross over between ourselves as district councils. So therefore, I hope that as these discussions take place, and the leader working with leaders of other councils is going in, that this sense of natural collaboration and recognising we're all part of that Cambridgeshire family and that we all live in the same area and we all work together comes to the fore, and that we are not seeking to somehow be parochial about what we are doing, because I really don't think that would be in the spirit of what our residents would like us to be able to do. As has been pointed out many times, our residents just want us to be delivering the best possible services, and I'm not sure they're hugely fussed under what banner that comes.
Thank you. And having opened the floodgates possibly to second contributions, it seems only fair that Councillor Heather Williams should have another opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Councillor Drew, for giving me that opportunity. I don't think the rest of your group are so pleased, I'll be honest with you, from the looks around the room. For me, you're right. Unitaries have been supported from those in a political party and those without, and independents. I think there is a distinct difference to how it was in the past, pretty much. It was if you wanted to, and some people proactively chose to do it. They thought it was right for their area. So I would say a slight nuanced situation. I think what feels difficult is it feels like, it's Big Brother saying you must do it and implementing their will upon us. And while we all seek to do exactly as Councillor Drew says, we are human beings as well. And I'm sure many of us are sat around this table because we don't like people telling us necessarily what to do at times. I'm naming no names at all on that. When it comes to working cross-party, I think the DCN and the leader and I do a lot of work with the LGA as well. LGA in particular is cross-party, and we must make sure it remains so. That obviously does take for both sides to be in agreement, as Councillor Milne said. And yes, we do need to take consideration as to everybody. And that's what I was saying earlier on as well, that our councils, we can only get the best results if we are representative of where we serve. And that is something that I think is a valid thing to raise, whether you live in South Cambridgeshire, City, East, wherever it may be. However, I would say as well, not everybody looks to Cambridge. We already have that issue. So actually, I have Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire on my boundary. More people go to Hertfordshire, to Royston for their health care and everything else than they do for Cambridgeshire. And I think that's something we have to be aware of. And actually, if you live on the border, as actually the leader and I do in a similar part of the world, it's very difficult. Literally, I have a Hertfordshire postcode, a Cambridgeshire address, and some of my residents have a Bedfordshire phone number. So, it's not quite, the world is beyond our county boundaries, but we must make sure that we work within the parameters that we have, Chair. And yes, I think so far we've been informed and working across the board. And I do hope that with the leaders' meetings, maybe the leaders of the opposition will attend those in due course, perhaps. That would help the other partner councils as well.
Thank you. I'm sure the leader will be able to take account of both those last two contributions in her summing up, and in addition, my own brief comment here, which is I think we need to always keep in mind what our voters see of us. Frankly, many voters do not understand which council is responsible for sweeping the streets and which council is responsible for clearing the gullies into which we have swept them. To reduce it to its minimum. I think, secondly, we as councillors need increasingly to look ahead, not just to consider what role we might play as a district council, but what role the councils collectively might play together. That's all I wanted to add to the very useful debate that we've had. I'll now invite the leader to sum up, and then we will have the opportunity to note the letter. Leader.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will keep this brief. I've been really encouraged by the debate this evening. I think it demonstrates that we absolutely can, all of us, work together in the best interest of our residents. Councillor Williams said, and Councillor Drew has reiterated, that this does transcend politics. And if we need to remind ourselves of that every now and then, I think, you know, we should do, because, you know, this is far too serious to play politics with. And I'm, you know, and it's very gratifying that that has not been the case this evening at all. We must take our residents with us on this journey, and I think those points have been made very well, so thank you very much indeed. We've got quite a lot to take away about how we keep our residents informed, how this could alarm them. We need to calm them, because there are opportunities here, and particularly, you know, the conversation we had right at the beginning about parish councils, I think they would find very reassuring. In my conversations with 3 leaders of fairly newly created unitaries, what they've all said is once you've decided to do it, you've got to commit 100%. You said you cannot do unitarisation reluctantly or by half measures. If you're going to do it, you commit completely to it, and you have confidence in what you're trying to achieve, and you know, that's only fair on our staff. It's only fair on our residents that, having made the decision, that we are committed to this. And I think we need to get ourselves into that headspace pretty quickly, because, you know, some of us are still feeling a bit sort of bruised and battered by it, because we didn't see this coming. But I think the sooner we can get ourselves into that headspace, the sooner we can move this forward swiftly and painlessly into the new world of unitarisation, and you know, hopefully a new glowing world of unitarisation, and hopefully we can do it. I have every confidence that with the people within this organisation, we can do it really well and leave a legacy that we're all very proud of. And I thank you all for your contributions to this evening, which have, from everybody, been really useful and helpful, and I look forward to continuing to work with all members of this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Members, I thank you for sharing your views on reorganisation. I'm now going to invite Council to affirm that we note this report. We do not need to take a vote on this, but can I take it by affirmation that we note this report so that Cabinet may consider the letter that has been put before you? You all agreed? Agreed. That draws this meeting of Council to a close. The next Council meeting will be the annual meeting held on Thursday, 22nd of May at 2 p.m. And I therefore close this meeting at 7:08. Thank you, members.